Hello guys, this is Karthik from ExecuteAutomation.com and this is part 13 of our ALM with Team Foundation Server Dev and QA focused video series. And in this part, we're going to talk about creating XAML build definitions and executing it in Team Foundation Server 2015. So before watching this part, I would request you to watch part 12 since this part is going to be a continuation of that part. So let's get started. What is build definitions? Well, build definition provides an interface that lets the user define the build steps and the build parameters needed for the user's build. So the build can be defined to be on demand, a rolling, or a continuous integration build. So it can be of any type. So this is what is a build definitions where each check-in causes a build to be queued accordingly to its priority. So this is the greatest benefit of a build definition. So you can specify that once a developer check-ins their code in their applications, then automatically this particular build definitions will trigger a build in the build server, and your build server will make a build of your application ready. So this way you can also see that how a developer check-ins their code and how the build is happening and how the code is being transformed into your workable application. So if there happens any issues in your code check-in of your developers, then developers will easily know that okay, so because of my check-in there is some break happened. So there won't be much greatest breaking changes happening if there is this kind of continuous integration system in the build definitions defined already. So that is the greatest benefit of continuous integration system as a whole. So developer will come to know about their breaking changes as quick as possible once the build is available and once the check-in is done. All right, so this is called as build definitions in Team Foundation Server. And how to create it? Well, build definitions can be created using Visual Studio Team Explorer or with the introduction of Team Foundation Server 2015. We can also do this in Team Foundation Server 2015 web interface. So you can create the build definition in both these places. So until Visual Studio 2013, which is nothing but 2010, 2012, 2013, you can create build definition only in Visual Studio Team Explorer, whereas from Team Foundation Server 2015, we can also create build definitions in Team Foundation Server Web Edition. All right, so let's see it in action. So for that, I'm going to open the Visual Studio. So let me open the Visual Studio 2015 Enterprise in my machine. All right, so Visual Studio has opened, and now let's select our team project, which is nothing but our employee project. So it seems like that employee project is already selected. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this particular option, builds. So let's select that. And you can see that currently the build definitions, there are two kinds of stuffs available. One is the build definitions and another one is the XAML build definition. So this build definition is something which is otherwise called as the vnext of Team Foundation Server 2015. So we'll discuss about this in next video of this particular video series. But currently we're going to deal with this guy, the XAML build definition. So I'm going to go here and you can see there is an option called new build definitions. So you can also see there is an action and you can see manage build controllers. Remember in our last video of this video series, we created this build controller, default controller, and default agent. So that's where you can see this guy, the actions, manage build controller. So if you select this particular option, you can see that it automatically shows you the build controller as default controller and default agent. So as you recollect, this is the name of our controller, which is nothing but the default controller server, and this is the name of our agent, default agent hyphen server. And that's exactly what is listed in here in the manage controllers option. And you can also see the properties which are you saw in this particular Team Foundation Server administration console. So I'm going to just close this thing. All right. And then I'm going to close this window as well. Great. So now we are ready to create our new build definitions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this link, and you can see that it will show you a window which is pretty easy and easy to navigate, because whatever you see here is pretty understandable as well. So you can see that the first tab here is a general tab, and it says what is the name of this particular build definition and what is the description you want to give, and do you want to be this particular build definitions as enabled or passed or disabled. So of course we're going to create it for the first time, so I want it to be enabled. So I'm going to give it a name. So maybe I'm going to give this a XAML build for employee app, and we can give the description as well. This build def is for XAML. All right. And then I'm going to go to this trigger. This trigger is a very interesting part, and this is where the continuous integration comes in. And you can see that you can select the trigger based upon the actions. So the actions here are, do you want to perform this build trigger by manually triggering it by clicking the Q new build? So we'll talk about the Q new build in a minute. So this is what it is: the manual check in and triggering the build automatically. So this trigger, the manual trigger, will be triggered only if you click the Q new build manually. And there is one more option called continuous integration, which means once your developer checks in the code, then this build will be triggered automatically by your build system. So this is what is the continuous integration. Or do you want to make a rolling build? So you accumulate all the check-ins until prior build finishes, and then you perform that. Or do you want to make a gated check-in, so accepts check-in only if the submitted check-in check changes, merges, and builds successfully? So do you want to make it as a gated, or do you want to schedule it for a particular time period? So as of now, I'm going to select the manual so that I can do a manual build instead of doing any one of these trigger options. So let this be manual for now. And then the next tab is a source setting tab. Pretty interesting and pretty awesome, because this is where your source code is going to be sitting, right? And you can see that there is two options: one is active and another is choked. And this active is where your actual source directory sits in, and your application will fall under this particular directory. So you can actually see what is this particular option. So you can also select this. So this is where your application is coming. So this is where your source code of your application is available, and that's the one it is listed. And the source directory is, of course, this is the agent source directory where you want to put your source code. So this is the source setting of your Team Foundation server's XAML build. All right. And oops, sorry, the next thing, before I did this, I just clicked the save, that's why. All right, and the next thing is the build defaults. So where you want to run this particular build. So as of now, we need to specify which build controller you're going to run. So I'm going to select this default controller, and instead of this UNC path, I'm going to select this copy build to copy build output to the server option. So now the warning symbol is gone. And the next tab is the process tab. And here you can specify a lot of details, something like do you want to clean your workspace before your execution, or do you need to get some kind of versions, or do you want to label the source, or which project you're going to execute. That's pretty important. It is, I don't know, it should be selected automatically. If it is not selected, you can click this ellipsis and you can select your project for the solutions. I think the reason why it is not selected is because I have not opened any one of the solution in my solution explorer. That's the reason. If I have already opened, this particular project will be automatically appearing in here. So you don't have to manually do this. But as of now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my employee application. All right, so you can see that the particular application appears here, and you can specify the configurations if you want to, but as of now there is no configuration, so I'm going to just close this. And it also says that do you want to do a clean build. So before building it, just choose a clean, and then it builds the applications and then perform the operation. And also you can see there is an advanced options where you can specify the ms build stuffs. So it is automatic. Currently it is in auto state. You can also select this to x86 or what kind of platform it is. So all those things are there. As of now I'm not going to deal with any one of them because these stuffs are going to be dealt in greater detail in another video of this particular execute automation channel, where we will be creating some additional stuffs, something like that. So as of now I'm just going to leave this guy, and then for the test and the advanced all those things, probably we're going to deal them a later video of this particular video series. So I'm just going to save this particular build definition. Before doing that, the last one is the retention policy. So how long you're going to keep this particular build definition. So it says that keep 10 latest, or maybe you can maybe keep 10 latest of the partially succeed or something like that. But as of now I'm just going to be not selecting any one of them, and then I'm just going to save this particular build definition. So the build definition is saved, and let's close this guy and let's go to the Team Explorer, and you can see that this time I got this option, XAML build for employee application. So now if I try to run this particular build definition, it will run. So let's try to see how it works. So for running this, what I have to do is I need to right click this, and you can see there's an option called queue new build. So this is where you can queue your build. So if I click this particular option, it will say that I'm going to execute this in this particular controller, and do you want me to queue? And I'm going to say okay, just queue this guy. So if I queue this, you can see that the build is actually queued in here, and it says just start 20 seconds before. And if I double click this, you can see that this is actually opening up in a Team Foundation server web, and it shows me some stuffs here. This is pretty interesting part here, and you can see that it's running for like 15 seconds or 16 seconds, 17 seconds. Pretty great. And you can see the summary of this, what's happening, and there's an artifacts where it shows the drop folder uh, of your application source code. I mean your application exe. And let's go to this log again, and it says that runs on the default agent. Remember the one which we created? That's where it is running actually. It should be running this time, but there will be a failure of course because of the test, but it's okay for now. We'll talk more about that in upcoming videos of this video series. But as of now, our intention is to see how to create a build definition and how to execute this and see how it works. And this is where the build will actually completed, and currently the build says it is partially succeeded. And let's go to the artifacts, and now if I do a explore here, you can see that I will have my exes or the DLLs of the particular projects. So this is great, and since I have a web service, it is also being shown here as published websites. All right, great. I'm just close this guy, and you can also download this if you want to. You can see that the drop is actually downloading. It's downloaded already. And then you can go to the summary, and it says that the test actually failed. That's what I was saying, that this test will actually fail because I made this intentionally. That's why I said that the test will fail, and that's the reason that the build partially succeeded. It says that the build got succeeded, but due to the failure of the build's test, it is partially succeeded. So you can also see the logs here, and you can see the diagnostic informations, and it also says that this particular test has got failed, right? So now your build is ready, and this is how you can actually create a build definition and execute this in Team Foundation server. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching this video and have a great day.